Phil. Thank you for the way he's faithfully served us over recent days, and what a blessing he's been to this fellowship. And I pray for him now that you would be with him. Thank you for the preparation he's put into speaking to us today. Father, help us to have open ears to hear what you are wanting to say through his ministry this morning. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. Can you all hear me all right? Good morning, Faringdon. Whoa. Good morning online as well. It's wonderful to come back to join you again. It's always wonderful to come in, to just feel the buzz and just to be amongst God's people. So thank you for the warmth of your welcome. I wanted to start by taking you back to pastor school. It's where they send all the little pastors like me when we're just about this high. It's a special place. They send us padded walls, that kind of thing. And at pastor school, they taught us how to do lots of different things that you just wouldn't consider that you would have to do. For instance, how to drink a cup of tea without slurping, because that's extremely off-putting if you're in a deeply emotional pastoral situation and you just hear that. Also, they told you how to navigate the difficulties when you've got a cup of tea in a saucer, and then you have to use one hand to hold the saucer and one hand to kind of gesticulate, but you have to also find that fine balance to balance your chocolate digestive on the saucer so it doesn't fall off on the ground. So they teach us lots of things about that. But my favourite lesson was how to look as if you're interested during a committee meeting. It was hours of working on your facial expressions to get it there. But the most important thing that they drilled into us from day one, something you should never do. Never. Absolutely never. In a million years, don't ever do, on pain of death, just don't do this one thing. And that's to start your talk with the word sorry. They told us, don't ever start a talk with the word sorry. The lecturers said to us, if you start your talk with the word sorry, then it either means you're a bit wet and don't quite know what you're talking about, or you've got something you feel embarrassed about that you need to apologise for. But I'm sorry. I feel I need to say sorry at the start of this talk, and I feel I need to say sorry to the people who told me not to say sorry at the start of every talk. So I'm sorry. Sorry. We hear a lot of sorries at the moment, particularly on the news, particularly from those that lead us, regardless of your opinion. And bearing in mind our passage today, I want us to think about how many sorries does it take before you believe it? And how many sorries does it take before you mean it? In our passage today, Jesus is with his disciples. They're enjoying some breakfast on the beach. They're enjoying some nice time together. This was one of the many times that Jesus appeared to his friends after his death. And because we know how the story goes, perhaps we miss something of how incredible this moment was. Because if you think about it, it must have been quite remarkable. Just a few days before, the disciples had watched their master Jesus being taken away, being put on a cross and killed. And then just a few days later, they're having a barbecue on the beach with the same guy that was dead and buried and sealed in a tomb. That must just have blown their mind. We just kind of gloss over it because we know the story. But imagine them. They had seen him sealed in a tomb, dead, gone to the world. And in the next moment, they're having a barbecue on the beach. The most ordinary of situations. Each time Jesus appeared to his friends after he'd been raised, you can almost imagine what was going on in Peter's mind, because Peter had a few things to say sorry for, didn't he? He hadn't quite got it right in the last couple of moments of Jesus' life. I really like Peter as an individual, and you might too, because he's the kind of person that if he thinks it, he says it. If he thinks it, he does it. He's the kind of person that you would not want to sit beside at a fancy dinner party, because he will embarrass you by foot in mouth constantly. He's brash, he's rude, he's impulsive, he just does it. Think about some of the moments when Jesus is walking on the water. What does Peter do? That looks quite nice. Jesus, can I come and have a shot as well? Why not? Think about when Jesus says the wonderful question, who do you say that I am? Peter almost punches everyone around him and says, wait a minute, I've got this, guys. You're the Christ, Son of the living God. It's obvious, isn't it? Think about the Last Supper, when Jesus says, you're going to fall away from me. What does Peter do? Size 16 feet, straight in there. All these wasters, they'll all fall away, but me, no chance. Think about the Garden of Gethsemane, when the high priest's servants come, when the mob comes. Who is it that gets their sword out and whacks some poor chap's ear off? It's only Peter. Surely he deserved it. And then think about this scene, just before this scene happened. They were out fishing all night. And Peter, as soon as he spots Jesus, jumps into the water, swims as fast as he can. Who cares about the guys left behind on the boat? I'm off to see Jesus. But as impulsive as he was, Peter carried a deep pain in his heart, because at the Last Supper, Jesus said to Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter said, no chance. I'll be there to the very end. Everyone else will fall away, but me, no chance. So when Peter was faced, when he was outside the high priest's place, and he was asked questions 3 times, do you know Jesus? No. Do you know him? No. Do you know him? No. 3 times he denied him. Peter took the easy option. And he wept bitterly after he'd done it, because he knew that he had done just what Jesus said he would do. So you can imagine in Peter's mind, every time he met Jesus after the resurrection, he would be thinking, is Jesus going to say it? Is he going to? Is it? No, he's not. Is it? No. I don't know if you've been in situations like that, where you're just waiting for someone to give you a row, but they don't, and you're like, oh. Poor Peter. Think about for the first time that Jesus appeared. It was so exciting. Peter would have been so overwhelmed. It was just too much to say sorry in that moment. I'll do it next time. And the next time Jesus appeared, Thomas was getting a really hard time because he denied Jesus. And Peter would have been like, well, it's not the right moment for me to kind of say sorry. We'll just put it off for another time. Peter would have been thinking every time he met Jesus after he'd been raised from the dead, is Jesus going to kick my head in because of what I've just done? Is he? How could he possibly find the words to say sorry? I don't know if you found yourself in those situations, as I said before. It's a really awkward conversation. Nobody's talking about the elephant, that big massive elephant in the room that you all know is there, but it's too awkward to talk about it. I've been part of many of those conversations, particularly with some of the younger service personnel. I know why they're coming to see me. They know why they're coming to see me. They know that I know why they're coming to see me. But they can spend an hour talking about the curvature of a cabbage in order to avoid talking about this really awkward elephant in the room. Maybe you've had those kind of conversations, or maybe you yourself have tried to skirt round them because it's just too awkward. But Peter, he's in the boat, he spots Jesus, leaves his friends behind, jumps in the water, swims as fast as he can, gets to the shore. Jesus doesn't mention anything. Maybe Jesus didn't know. Maybe Jesus has forgotten. And then after the meal, It's after the meal that Jesus drops that bombshell. As Jesus looks around at all the disciples having a nice snooze on the beach after a lovely barbecue, he turns to Peter and says, "Peter, do you love me more than these?" And you can almost see Peter's face. It's time, I've been caught. He's asking me about it. You can almost see the kind of memories of that betrayal, that moment just kind of flooding back into Peter's life, the horror of losing his master that one night. And then Peter plucks up his courage and says, "Lord, you know that I love you." And then Jesus turns to him again and says, "Peter, do you love me?" And you can almost again feel Peter's heart kind of beating quicker. He's asking me again. Why is he asking me again? And he finds his memories once again drawn back to the high priest's courtyard when he's standing, warming himself by the fire. And people are saying to him, "Do you know Jesus?" No, I've never seen him in my life. And Peter plucks up the courage again. "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And then it's a third time. A third time he turns to him, "Peter, do you love me?" And you can almost feel that pain coming yet again. 3 times. 3 times. The significance of Jesus asking Peter 3 times wouldn't have been lost on Peter. You can almost imagine his face falling, his eyes kind of tearing up, finding it really, really difficult to look at the man's face, the man that he had denied, the man that he promised he'd be there forever. So what did Jesus do? Did he revel in Peter's brokenness and rub his little hands together because he really got him on the rocks now? Did Jesus decide to put in the boot some more while he was down? Just really remind him that he really wasn't worthy? Or did Jesus seek to try and tell him that, well, he's pretty much a loser and he'll never ever change? What did Jesus say to him? He said, "Follow me. Follow me." Now cast your mind back a couple of years to the very start of Jesus' ministry. Jesus is on a beach and he's looking out to sea and he sees a boat with some fishermen on it. They've been fishing all night, they've caught nothing. Jesus shouts to them, "Put the net on the other side of the boat and you'll catch something." And they do. There's so much fish they can't cope with it. And when they get to shore, Peter is one of the fishermen, and he falls to his knees in front of Jesus, fully aware of his brokenness in that moment. And what did Jesus do in that moment? Did he revel at Peter's brokenness, being on his knees and aware of his insecurities and his fears? Did he put the boot in some more while Peter was down? "Well, you're just a smelly fisherman, what can you do?" Did he tell Peter that he would never amount to anything special? Jesus said the same words. He said, "Follow me." On the same lakeside, on the same beach, after similarly fishing all night and catching nothing, Jesus, in a metaphor, took Peter back to the same place where he first met him. The very same place where he first met him, where he first commissioned him, and he commissioned him again. Peter's heart must have been ready just to burst, as he would have remembered, this is when I first met Jesus, and he commissioned me then. He's commissioning me again. Maybe he doesn't hate me after all. Jesus really wasn't going to kick his head in for being such an idiot. He was commissioning him again for the future. And think about that question that Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" It's a big question, isn't it? It's a big, big question. And the reason it's a big question is because it's personal and it's a very present question. Jesus isn't asking, "Did you love me last Wednesday?" He doesn't say, "Do you think you will love me next Thursday?" He says, "Do you love me?" It's a present question. Now, do you love me now? What's in your heart? It's not about the past. It's not about the present. It's not about the past or the future. It's about that present moment. Do you love me? And how did Peter respond? He didn't say, well, last year when things were great, I really loved you. He doesn't say, well, if you let me win the lottery on Friday nights, I'll love you. He says, Lord, you know that I love you. It was about the attitude of his heart. It's not about what happened yesterday, because that was history. It's not about the pretend promises as to what Peter pretends he's going to do tomorrow. It's about today. Come and follow me, Jesus says. But why do you think he asked him 3 times? Well, think of it this way. If I meet you in the streets outside and I say, oh, how are you? What's your normal response? Fine. And you kind of go on your way. Because it's just what we ask people. How are you? Fine. On you go. But what if, when we're out, and I say, how are you? Fine. And then I stop you and say, how are you? And I ask you for a second time. You might well think to yourself, well, this guy clearly is a bit deaf. Or you might think, oh, wait a minute, maybe he's actually interested. So you might say a bit more, oh yes, I'm fine, thanks very much. What if I then ask you a 3rd time, how are you? Then you will know that I genuinely care enough to ask you. It was an Old Testament custom. If you wanted to establish something as being really true and really lasting, you did it 3 times. If you wanted to ensure that something was true, you would confirm it 3 times. When you were making a contract, when you were wanting to make sure, absolutely sure, that every party there knew that this was true, you would do it 3 times. So Peter and Jesus would have known. They were establishing a new contract with each other, a new covenant, as Jesus spoke about. Didn't matter about yesterday. Didn't matter about what he was promising to do tomorrow. It mattered about what was in his heart today. And this passage gives me immense comfort and immense hope in my life, because to be honest, I'm pretty rubbish at my faith at times. I constantly feel that I've let Jesus down by the things I've said and done in the past. Maybe you're the same. And I'm continually saying to God, oh, tomorrow will